Benvenuto Jesse.
Welcome, Jesse.
Greetings.
Cosa posso dire di te? Conoscitore della permacultura.
What can I say about you? Permaculturist?
Conoscitore delle,
Permaculture expert?
conoscitore delle piante
Knowledgeable about plants?
ed è da anni che pratica respirianesimo.
And it seems some years he practices breatharianism.
Yes, indeed.
Lascio la parola a te.
Thank you very much.
You can start.
Okay, excellent. All right. Well, greetings, everyone. So grateful to be here. Grateful to meet you all and to be sharing my love of, pranic living and life cultivation is kind of more my goal. I am as they sort of introduced me as, I'm a permaculturalist and an herbalist. Been doing permaculture in northern New Mexico for 25 years. Been practicing herbalism for about 15, and for the last 8, I've been like 95% liquidarian, and the last 3 dry fasting 23 hours a day, and then juicing for an hour a day. I'm also a certified juice therapist. So basically what my mission is, I'm a Buddhist and a Taoist. I want to relieve suffering in myself and others on the planet. And that's what I see the pranic lifestyle to be about, because the way I see it, we are all breatharians already. And this is just something we have forgotten. And it's that thing of every cell in life is seeking homeostasis. And we're finding out now through the science around fasting that when you fast through autophagy and through just the action of equilibrium, the cells become more electric and what have you. But one thing that I'm passionate about after being in this space for a number of years is sort of transforming the consciousness around breatharianism to be not so much about not eating food, but about a high state of health that is an electrical state, and that the result of which can be the relinquishment of food. But to focus on that, because I find this space is a beautiful space that attracts people who want to transform themselves and transform the world. But it also attracts people who are in desperate need of a lot of healing. And some of my talk today will be a little bit around not being too restrictive in this path, because that essentially leads to eating disorders. And what we want as a whole, as we transform ourselves, is the whole transformation of our well-being, both body, spirit, and mind. So it's not just a physical thing. And my approach comes from the Taoists and the Ayurvedic sort of sciences. And that's kind of where I stumbled across breatharianism, was in researching Ayurveda, researching Taoist herbalism, and also in just reading about spiritual adepts who relinquished foods. And a great book, I have a few books to share just so you can have some reference material to check into. One of them is Spiritual Nutrition by Dr. Gabriel Cousens. And in this book, he has some really good sharing of historical examples of breatharians who just essentially through achieving ecstatic states of spirit were able to relinquish food, and not as a preconceived idea, but as just a result of their ecstasis. So, part of my talk today will be around also nutrition and herbalism, and how to use nutrition and herbalism to achieve balance because this state of breatharianism is really one of energetic balance. There's so many pieces and parts, so I'm going slowly down, if I go too fast, and I have a very tangential mind, so tell me if we need to back up. But so what I see the 6 limbs of breatharianism to be are, on the one hand, there is nutrition and fasting. They're part of one thing. So actually using nutrition to achieve this high state of health. And we'll talk a little bit today about Hilton Hotima's scheme of sort of nutritional needs. I know one of Nicholas's things is just moving to liquid. I feel that is definitely a part of it, because essentially our body is a juicer. So everything you put in, whatever it is, you chew up and you mix with your saliva and you turn it into juice. So that's why I'm fond of working with juicing to achieve this state. But there's nuances to that. But we'll get into that briefly. Let me just go through the 6. So there's diet and fasting. And fasting, the fasting side, you want to just do gently. If you go deep into a massive dry fast, I've seen this with a lot of people. Well, they'll, I have a friend who did like almost 40 days, but then he snapped back for a couple of years and got into really dense eating and kind of got depressed. And, so you have to honor that the body and mind have to gently go to this higher energetic state together. And part of Chinese traditional medicine is that the gentle healing is the most effective and the most strong, actually. So that's my approach to this. So second would be sexual temperance. Your sexual fluids, this cerebral spinal fluid is, you have the Ida and the Pingala. You have the channel that circulates your cerebral spinal fluid, which is actually your sexual fluid or your seminal fluid if you're a man. And then your blood goes up the other channel, and one dumps into your pituitary gland and one into your pineal. And so part of this thing of working with fasting and breath and stuff is opening up this natural circulation that we should naturally all be having an enlightenment experience. Once a month, there's a psycho-spiritual speed that ripens and will dump in. If, the Kundalini energy wants to fall upward. So that's partly why fasting and juicing, cleaning out the energetic channels physically, allows the Kundalini to naturally rise. But that can be something you have to work with grounding back into. We'll get into more of this later, but suffice to say that sexual energy, that Kundalini energy, is part of this electrical circuit that goes through the body and is a cyclical pattern. And we can facilitate this natural arising and falling of the Kundalini energy. And part of that is sexual temperance. So being very mindful of who you share your sexual energy with, and that can also include things such as creative projects, working with other people, relationship in general. It involves your creative energy, and it's your sacral energy. So, and then third, I would say, is like some energy cultivation practice. Things like grounding, sun gazing, qigong, yoga. Qigong and yoga are key just in terms of like opening up the channels of prana and allowing sort of the more psycho-spiritual flow, stopping the step, and meditation actually being the most fundamental. So that would be the next thing is breath work. That's the 4th limb. So working with meditation primarily is, as the name alludes to, it's breatharianism. I also come from being taught by Elitam Elamine who is branding it sort of as solar breatharianism, which is really sensible when you consider that all of the life on the planet is a manifestation of the solar energy, and that the solar energy that connects with the etymologically with the word soul and with our heart, which our heart is this electromagnetic field, this toroidal field, that when you focus on the well-being of the heart, in Chinese traditional medicine, they say that the heart is the emperor and it guides all the other organs and all the other channels and everything. So to key into it's also the place of compassion and courage. So that's something we need more of in these days. So getting into the heart and opening the energetic channels and relaxing the mind through the breath. The breath also physically charges the body. So this whole thing with the body is really this electrical dynamic. I'll get into a little bit here in a while. I'm trying to keep my keep my mind ordered here. But suffice to say, the pumping up and down of the breath creates electricity, and it stimulates this flow of the Kundalini energy. So next would be exercise. A lot of people get involved with this path, and we're people who get into raw and fruitarianism and stuff, and they don't use their body enough. And your body really wants to move. I've been really fascinated lately with the Tarahumara Indians of Mexico, who will, they're known to be able to run as much as 200 kilometers at once, because they practice every day going many, many miles. And our bodies are made to move. We're energy beings, and energy must move. So exercise is really key. And then the very last of the 6 limbs I would call joy practice, because that is the secret health to longevity, is to be in joy, to be surrounded by community that is meaningful to you, to be doing work that is fulfilling, to take time to play like a child, to create, to play in the mud or play in the garden or climb a tree, play some music or dance. That joy practice is super key for all manner of things. All of these practices are great for managing the stressful times we live in, all the pressures that are going on sociologically, economically, environmentally, and by doing these practices, we regain. What's really the goal to me with breatharianism is not about whether to be on food or not to food, but a consciousness, and to raise my level of consciousness to the point of, as a Buddhist, trying to develop bodhicitta, or, a loving heart mind, one of compassion, that we do so much trying to do for others, and we'll bleed our own heart energy away. But if we direct our awareness to our own needs and our own, loving capacity, and intentionally develop that, then we go out into the world and start to create the new world that will be the resolution to all of the collective difficulties that we're going through. Each one of us, each of you, every being in creation has this potential for realization. We're all Buddhas. And so this is, to me, the purpose of breatharianism is to develop myself so that I can help others to do the same. Those are what I see to be the 6 limbs, but then there's various other pieces and parts to that, and more depth and detail to each of those 6 limbs. As I was stating before, this is part of an energetic state. So something that is been talked about for quite a long time in sort of the raw vegan space is natural hygiene. So it's a lot of the things that I just mentioned, getting in the sun, exercise, uh, good hydration, good nutrition, you know, um, but also good relationship, etc. So these are just principles. This is really actually just simplistic principles for good living, uh, to just feel well. And that's what I love about it. And it's freeing. That's the other value that Buddhists hold higher than peace or anything else is actually freedom. So in this way, I get to enjoy every day. I just have to sit down for an hour with my juice, and I have about an hour worth of prep I do every day. And the rest of the day I have available energetically to create, to work, to make gardens, to, make herbal uh, tinctures and salves and such, and to teach classes. And so because you can't pour from an empty cup, we have to heal ourselves first and really nurture ourselves into this place where our cup is overflowing. Not just that you can pour off of it, but your cup is actually brimming over with your own heart, love, energy, that is just your joy, you know. And so there's basically two sort of paths that you can take to breatharianism. There is the path of sort of difficulty and discipline and, challenge that's totally valid, totally meaningful way, and then there's the way through joy, through pure joy and ecstasis. And most of us, I would think, would need a little bit of both. I know that's the case for me. So there's times where you're going to need to be disciplined to hold your boundaries. Like one of the most difficult things, as you probably know, you've all probably already made significant lifestyle changes if you're here at this retreat, is dealing socially and with family, having to put down hard boundaries about what you will consume and what you won't consume and when. But also going to the other side, sort of the more yin side, and being allowing, and just being like, okay, I'm going to let myself right now, because what can happen with this is we fixate towards a goal, and then we can become too restrictive, and that's what leads to eating disorders. And so right now I live a very restrictive lifestyle where I'm doing just juice for just an hour a day, but just in recent months, after my trip to Costa Rica, I found the need to make myself more flexible. So what I've been doing is just bringing a little more juice and maybe some honey or something to work. It's been extremely hot. And I've noticed that I've been, doing this 23-hour a day dry fasting, being a landscaper, moving rocks around and digging holes and, hiking up mountains and gathering herbs. And, it's a very active lifestyle. And that aids the process, but you also have to balance the energy. So in the long-term sense, something that my teacher Ellie Tom shared with me long ago that was really helpful was whatever level you're at, whatever you're trying to sort of manifest with intentionally, do something that you can do easily, for consistently, and then watch it grow from there naturally. So instead of trying to, through discipline, make something happen completely through will and effort, in that sense, do something that grows more naturally, like a flower. And I find this to be the best path forward in this way, because we are all so complex. Our needs are so complex. They're beyond, and we mostly think of them in terms of our physical needs, but our emotional and social needs are probably actually much more significant. So I just want to note that little point, to honor your emotional needs, give yourself permission to bend, and to try to find something that you can do consistently for a long time. And we all have different personalities. Some of us, I'm pretty extreme. I'm a triple Aries. To go in this really hardcore disciplined way has been, beneficial to me in that, and to my relenting, and to also learning when to say when, learn and my own limits. So that's just a note, because I've had a few people approaching me in my coaching calls lately, and a lot of their difficulties are more in this realm of mental fixation, where they're fixated on, they heard that to do breatharianism, you have to take this path of raw to fruitarian to liquidarian to water, and then dry fast, and then, but I find that it's, with most people, there's going to be a mixing and a blending and an up and down, and moving to liquids versus solids, just allow yourself this flexibility and keep something consistent, and you'll gain for sure. So that would be what I'd want to share with you on respect to that. And with respect to nutrition, that kind of bleeds in from here into how to use nutrition and herbalism to balance, what we call chi or prana. It's solar energy, it's our consciousness. It's this way in which we are inextricably connected to everything, and the elements of earth, wind, fire, and water, that we come from these elements. In sort of modern thinking, you could also think of them as solids, liquids, energy, and gas, but we are, and the body is actually sort of this electrical pressure gas machine, that runs off air. And when our diaphragm and our bellies and intestines are all full of food, then your body can't metabolize higher forms of prana or energy or sunshine, which are things like light and color and sound, but we can use foods to start to move our bodies there, to attenuate to prana. And a lot of these foods are, going to be more of, like, I would say, your raw foods and your fruits and such, because they're going to be higher in nutritional density, higher in water, higher in, mineral content, and higher in electrical biophotons. So this is like starting to kickstart the pranic energy in the body, starting to adapt it to this higher form of prana. And not only that, but it comes with, the range of antioxidants and etc. And those waters, the living waters from plants, build in the body what's called the exclusion zone water. So the exclusion zone water is the interstitial water between cells that has an electrical charge, where on one side it's positive, and on the other side it's negative. And the better, it's like a liquid crystal jelly, that the better the quality of that water, the better that charge is going to be. So that's really pretty key, and why I'm fond of liquidarianism and juice fasting and juice therapy, because this washes out the guts so that you can start to breathe more rarefied forms of prana, through the diaphragm. It also is going to wash the cells clean of excess fats and toxins, and it will supplant it with, electrolytes. Your fruits and etc. are full of electrolytes, which are going to be, all kinds of sugars and minerals and stuff like that. So, we're getting this energy to the cell more rapidly. It's getting like quick electricity with less wear and tear on the body. And, from there, working into the realms of fasting, you could call, for some people, raw food is a fast, and they're going to need to fluctuate back and forth between raw and cooked, or, meat or whatever, and no judgments on that. In the Hilton Hotima scheme, he would say that grains are the worst because they tend to be gluey, like rice and, oats and and gluten from wheat, all kind of gum up that chronic engine of the intestines. You know, they also tend to have phytates and nutrient inhibitors that will sort of take a nutrient from the body. And then they also are prone to mycotoxins. So grains he would see to be the worst. And then next would be vegetables, because these have been hybridized out of the wild foods to be sweeter and juicier and etc. And they all vegetables and even herbs are classified by their toxicology, because everything has some toxicity to it. There are plants and herbs that in the Taoist realm, there's 3 categories. There's a superior class. We'll talk about those in just a minute, or I'll just hit them real quick. There's foods of the earth, foods of man, and foods of heaven, or herbs. And the herbs of earth are going to be things like, maybe say, like comfrey. Comfrey is a good herb for mineralizing and healing bones, broken bones and such, that you can use internally. But if you use it for too long, it's so mineral rich that you'll get kidney stones and too much accumulation of minerals that can lead to bone spurs, etc. So that you couldn't eat that all the time without messing your body up. Next would be the herbs of man. So this could be things more like, lettuce or violets, or say rice, something that you could eat. It's gonna, give you some benefit, but there's gonna be some drawbacks too, And then there's gonna be the foods or herbs of heaven. And these are gonna be things basically that are called superfoods in this day and age. They're gonna be things like chlorella and wheatgrass, or reishi mushrooms, and goji berries, astragalus. And so from the Chinese perspective, there's 3 treasures. There's qi, jing, and shun. The qi is this prana, this life force energy. And it's likened to the flame of a candle. The jing is like the wax of the candle, or your genetic, what you kind of came with, your genetic predisposition and strength. And then the shun is like the light that comes off the flame, which is like your spirit. So the herbs of heaven have to nourish at least 1, if not 2, of the 3 treasures, and be something that you can eat every day, and it's never going to be contraindicated, never going to mess you up. So those are the foods that I linger on a lot. I try to compose most of my diet out of fruits and these herbs of heaven, to nourish Jing, Qi, and Shun, to nourish the exclusion zone water, to get the electrolytes, and sort of nourish this electrical state thereby. And then fasting, as we go into fasting, similarly, the way I worked with it, and what I would suggest you do, is start with what's comfortable to you or easy. So the first, I first got into, some liquid juice fasting, and then I got into some water fasting, and then I got into dry fasting. And, like, especially when I got into dry fasting, the first dry fast I did was just 24 hours, and then the second one I did 36, and then after that I did 48. I didn't try to do like a 5-day dry fast out the gate, because there's this rubber band thing that will snap you back. So I think if you go like this, that would be what I encourage you to do, is it encourages an epigenetic stretching of the genome, because your genes can do anything that your mind believes it can do. But it takes some stretching to get there. That's why people are able to go from, skinny to full of muscles, or, from full of muscles to 300 pounds. It's just a matter of our habits and our practices. So through cultivation, through these different limbs, it just starts to build. So let's see, is there anything else I wanted to share about that? Oh, yes. Okay, so then there's also on the whole thing of food, the thermal dynamics of herbs, of yin and yang. This is our own bodies. This is just relevant to the breatharian state and life, in general, as there's, these what seem to be antipodes of yin and yang, of masculine and feminine, night and day, cold and dark. And we each also have these elements of earth, wind, fire, and water in us. Earth and water tend to be that yin sort of state. Fire and air are more that yang state. So the yang is the pushing out, energetic, sort of electrical. The yin is more the grounding, accepting, stabilizing. So we can use the thermodynamics of food to balance our individual doshas, because we have unique combinations of earth, wind, fire, and water in our bodies and in our consciousness. So you can use them both to balance your body and your consciousness. So, for instance, say you are feeling very, let's say, just hot. It's hot right now, okay? And you want to cool off. You can use something like watermelon or cucumber that will cool you down because it has a very cooling thermal dynamic. You could also use, and that would be antipathy in herbalism, using to balance this against that. You can also use sympathy to heal. So you could also eat a hot chili on a hot day, and it would express heat to the periphery of the system, and you would start to sweat, and then you would start to cool evaporatively. So you can use herbs either way or foods either way to balance the system. Also, with respect to our consciousness, say you're type A like I am, and maybe a little high anxiety. You can use herbs that are cooling to the nervous system like vervain, or even things like tulsi, or ashwagandha isn't very cooling, but it will help the nervous system. It's not warming either. It's more of a neutral thermal dynamic. So getting to understand your herbs and your body in this way can be this whole wonderful meditation that you can go through every time you have a meal. You can just, as you're eating it, drop in, on the one hand, into mindfulness will increase the prana that you get from it. But also see if you can sense its thermal dynamics, see if you can feel where it's hitting in your body, which organs, or if you're working with an herb, try to get a sense of the spirit of the herb, the spirit of the food, because everything that we bring in, we're bringing in sort of the spiritual energies of those plants. And I like to think of plants as some of our greatest teachers and ancestors that are agents of change that can teach us from the inside out. And they can instruct us in prana because they make most of their bodies out of the sun and the air. They take a little from the soil, but they make most of their bodies out of gas and air. Gas and sunlight through photosynthesis. So we can use them as guides and to help balance the body and get this electrical state going in a higher way. So that was a lot on food and fasting. I want to move on to the other things. so we can get the questions here in about 10 minutes. So just blazing through a little, I went a little too long into that, but it's important to me. I think it's important that we approach this through nurturing our bodies to this high state of pranic living. So next would be that, the sexual temperance, we kind of went over, that this is your kundalini energy. This is your sacral energy. You want to treat it as such. Really, there is no finer gold than the gold in energy inside each and every one of you is the consciousness of love energy that infuses all things. And so that is also that consciousness is so precious because it is what manifests all the wonderful things or the terrible things in the world, depending on what we're nurturing, right? So the more we're doing this work on ourselves, the more we're actually creating it in the world, even though it seems sort of like effete and small. What each one of us does is actually enormous. So yeah, just guarding that sexual energy and being mindful of who you share it with, that's pretty, that's pretty no-brainer, but it's important. And then next would be the energy cultivation practice. So that it doesn't have to be qigong or yoga. It can be stretching, it can be dance, but the idea is basically, there's the whole thing of the fascia in the body and how if your body is still, most of us live sedentary lives now. We sit in front of computers all day at work, etc. And when our bodies are still, the fascia actually crystallizes. It's kind of like this liquid crystal jelly stuff. It's more mucousy. And when it's stretchy and mucousy, then it's also a part of the electrical transference through our body. So you got to get up and move and stretch and, do that, as many times as needed through the day to break up stagnation. You can even feel it when you're maybe at work and you're just like kind of mentally stuck. You can like just get up, like go to the bathroom, do a few stretches, maybe take a few deep breaths of meditation, in your stall or whatever, where you can have, some free time. And I find this is a great way, if you can thread little beads throughout the day of stretching or meditation, then all this stuff starts to build, a really good self-care practice that really keeps you stabilized. Because the number one name of the game thing in breatharianism, if you ask me, is nervous system regulation. Just feeling at home and relaxed and at peace in your body, so let's see, energy cultivation. Yeah. So, and then we covered meditation, the breath work thing. I'm really fond of the Taoist microcosmic orbit because it has you concentrate on energy centers that also connect with nexuses and ganglion of nerves and stuff, and kind of gets you familiarized with. What I like about it is there's two paths. There's the yin path and the yang path. The yin is connected. The yin mind is your wisdom mind. Your yang mind is more of your will and sort of manifestation creation mind. So you can, you basically are running your consciousness with your breath up and down these channels, up and down the front and back of your body in one direction or the other, depending on what you need. So it's a really powerful, potent thing I suggest y'all check out, because I find it's another one of these medicines of like, maybe there's one day I'm just so sluggish. I'm just like tired from gardening or whatever. And, I just kind of, maybe my morale's down because dealing with challenges and stress, I can do the yang mind and build energy and be like, okay, let's go get it, go. Or if I'm like, okay, I've been running too hard and I'm high anxiety and I need my consciousness, I need my wisdom, I can run it the other way, the yin mind, and ground out my consciousness into a relaxation and acceptance, you know. So that's just, I find that that's, this whole thing is this rise and fall of the energy that suffuses all things, that runs through all of creation. Just even through the day, you know, with the different, whatever sun, you know, activity that's going on, you know, X-class flares or just solar flares in general have an effect on our nervous system, you know. So just having these tools of diet, having, you know, the breath, stretch, you know, shaking out, like physically shaking, if you get into like maybe a stressful argument or something that you can't let go of, you can shake it out and that will relinquish it from your body. If you ever notice, you know, like a lion chasing a gazelle and the gazelle gets away, they'll shake out as soon as they get clear. And that clears that trauma from the body, that anxiety. So let's see, and then exercise too. They say exercise is the best antidepressant. You know, if you're having difficulty with sort of more of those stagnation energies, just go get some exercise. And if you exercise regularly, I find, you know, I used to struggle with depression in college and stuff, but now I rarely, you know, I get kind of seasonally effective. Like I don't do well in the winter because I'm just such a sun being. But you know, that exercise keeps me really, really, you know, as an Aries too. It's just like it's a yoga for me. So, and then yeah, we covered briefly joy. You know, so whatever that is to you, do it. You know, even if it's just like sitting with your cat, you know, and petting it, you know, for hours on end, and lounging on the couch. You know, gotta fill our cups so that we can help others. And that really, this, you know, consciousness that I'm trying to develop, the bodhicitta, and that I'd like to spread in the world, you know, is really your own fulfillment. I feel that the universe wants you all, and every one of us, to be completely in love with our lives and content, you know. And we just have to become flexible to the guidance that the universe is putting forth, or the way, the Tao, you know, and moving with, sometimes what feels right isn't something that feels like something you want to do, you know, and moving with that energy, developing yourself to this point where you want to help others, you know, because actually that is one of the highest happinesses that we can enjoy, is benefiting others, doing something to benefit others. But we really can't do it until we have given this ample amount of self-love to our own selves. So I see we're at 9:45 now. I'll leave it right there and make room for questions.
Thank you, Jesse. So, do you have any question?
If you are online and you want to make a question to Jesse, just type it in the answer and question section in Zoom. Thank you. Or in the chat if you want.
And I can just keep rambling here too. I did have some other books that I wanted to share. Oh, we got a question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you make suggestion for some other books? I see that you are very knowledgeable, and also can you recommend some breathwork, special breathwork?
Sure. Thanks. Sure. So one of the other books I have here I wanted to share with you all is this book called The Subtle Body, an encyclopedia of your energetic anatomy. This is really good because it covers all of the systems of the earth that deal with sort of like energy healing and energy awareness, all the different forms of you know, the Egyptian systems, the Chinese systems, the Ayurvedic systems, African systems, you know, all manner of systems of energy science, reflexology, meridians, all that stuff. It's really great for understanding this your subtle energy body is what we are working on and developing, you know, in this practice. And that's one thing I didn't mention that I'd like to just bring up really quick. You guys are, I'm sure, probably aware of, is just EMF, you know, from devices, you know, and stuff. Finding ways to mitigate because they're not healthful, like, you know, shungite, stones, grounding, you know, minimizing. So just a quick mention of that there. But as for a breath work, gosh, so the one I normally do is, as I was saying, the microcosmic orbit. I could try to run you all through that. I want to make sure there's room for other questions first, but let me start with sharing this other breath. This is actually something developed. I got to give, you know, tribute to Devon, the Black Airbender. He has this breath called alchemy breath. And it is really helpful for when you're dealing, on the one hand, with like sort of traumatic things, but it's also really, really great for when you're exercising. So it's just 3 quick breaths through the nose and then 1 longer out breath through the mouth. And you go through, you do 3, you can use your hand, and you do 3 for each pad on your hand. And by the time you've gone through, you've done the whole breathwork cycle. So one cycle would be like, oh, I'm sorry. I have to back up. So the last breath is the long breath out. And let me back that up. So it's 3 in breaths, short in breaths, and then 3 short out breaths. So and by the time you get to the end, you do a long breath out. And it's important to get long breaths out. You know, people talk a lot about oxygenating, but you have to actually get the carbon dioxide out just as much. That's another reason why breath work is important, is we actually release more sort of internal excrement. You know, it's really our poop, our pee, wasted, you know, cells that have died off and stuff through our breath than we do through our eliminatory organs. Because we breathe in oxygen and we breathe out CO2. So CO2 is just carbon with oxygen. Since this is a carbon-based life planet, when we consume things, that carbon is what we're exhaling and what we're excreting for the most part. You know, hence breatharianism. It actually cuts out the heaviness of the carbon, you know. So the more you can work with breath, that's really going to help. I'll quickly, is there any other questions? If not, I'll quickly run through the microcosmic orbit too. Looks like no, everybody's looking at one another.
You can go.
Okay, so to quickly run through the microcosmic orbit. Normally what you would do is run through every one of these points for a few minutes. But if you like to, we'll just do a short one together here. If you don't want to join, that's fine. You'll be able to see the process. So get yourself with your, your posture straight. You want your channels aligned. And it's good to be touching hands in some way, a mudra like this one or this, or just grasping your hands, just so the electricity can flow through. And we're just going to take 3 good deep breaths on each one of these spots, and I'll run you through. So starting with your dantian, which is 3 fingers below your navel. This is sort of where energetically we're connected to the mother in the universe here. So now just take 3 deep breaths, and with your concentration, put your mind on your dantian. 1, 2, 3. Now next, put your concentration on your heart center. 1, 2, 3. Now next, put your concentration on your throat chakra. And you just, with your concentration, you're feeding energy to your throat chakra. And just count on your own now. Next, focus your concentration on your third eye. Just between your eyes, slightly above your eyebrows. Okay, the next spot will be on your crown chakra, your fontanelle at the top of your head. This is a pranic channel where heaven chi pours into your crown. Okay, next will be at the base of your skull, where your neck bones sort of meet the skull. Okay, now the next spot is in between your shoulder blades, what Ellie Tom calls your angel wings. It's basically just between your shoulder blades, kind of on the backside where your heart would be, just a little bit up from there. Next is your coccyx, your tailbone. Okay, the next place will be your perineum. This is your earth chi conduit. This is where earth chi rises up through. And last, your genitals. And this is the water path we've done. So now we're going to take one deep breath going through the channels that go up to the top of the head. And one exhalation to let it fall down to our perineum. And do 3 breaths like that. To the top. And down. One more. And that was the water path of chi. And you can do, ideally now you would do this circulatory breath for as long as it took until your mind wound down and you connected with your wisdom heart. All right, you can open your eyes. And, you can tell how even just that short thing kind of really just helps ground out and soothe. If you want to build energy, you go the other way. You go from your, you start with your genitals and you go up your back to the top and down. So I hope that was helpful. It's really nice to connect with you all today. Are there any more questions or anything else I could do for you all?
We have a question.
Okay.
Hey, hello.
Hey, greetings.
You talk about that cells from the plants and that they are full of good water for us, and how you gonna take them? So do you also liquid them, the herbs that you eat? Because the cells
Yes, I do.
Yeah, okay, because the cells are from the plants, they are not in you, and you make it with the mixer, they are crushed then from there.
Correct.
Yes, is it better to crush them in the mouth like that, or you know what I mean, or in the mixer? And yeah, and
I'm
maybe
sorry, it's coming in badly there. Could you repeat that?
yes. When the cells from the plants, when they are crushed from the mixer and not in your mouth, like, you know what I mean? And they are then crushed from the mixer and not from your own body.
Yes, I find, Nicholas's method of trying just whatever you're having, blending it into a juice or a smoothie is a really great way. I also work with teas a lot, I'll also work with some superfood powders, things like medicinal mushrooms or, chlorella powder or things like that I'll work into. Generally I press things and make juice out of them. If they're, even plants, like I can go gather nettles, or alfalfa or something from the forest, and then juice it with some apples and some carrots, and then you get the living waters of all those plants, but you also get the medicinal phytochemistry and the nutrient density. But then I also do smoothies, where I'll grind in, stuff that I can't get through my juices, and I like to keep them as thin as possible because of where I'm trying to go with it, but there's times when I need to go thicker, days when I even do some solids, like some lettuce with some, fresh made dressing, or some, you know, like maybe I'll just have a few bites of beans if I even feeling that, like need to replenish, you know. So kind of what I like to advise everyone to do is let your body guide you, you know, because your body's wisdom and your higher self is this incredible, God being. So you actually know what's best, what's doing, the best for you.
Yeah.
But to explore with herbs and try to feel them and sense them and foods, as a meditation is a really fun way to engage.
Mm. Yeah.
Is that helpful?
Yes, it's helpful. Thank you. And there is another question coming up because you talk about your your drink or your smoothie, what you do and what you drinking every day, and you said before that you drink it for an hour. You take 1 hour to drink it. So maybe you want to tell what kind of mindset or what you do in this 1 hour for drinking it.
Yes, that's a really great point. I think no matter what you're consuming, when you're consuming, to try to drop in and be present, not really be, on your phone a whole lot, or, maybe something nice that you're listening to, a nice talk or something is okay, but best to just be actually present with the food, and sense it and feel it. And that's the half, if not more, of the reason we consume food, I feel, is this sensory pleasure, you know. So to be just present with that as a pranic experience. What I do is I usually prepare my stuff beforehand. Like I said, I'm a gardener and a landscaper, and so I'm usually running all morning. I try to have my meal around midday. It usually is about 1:30 or 2:30 because I am trying to get a full days of work in before that. And I just have everything ready, and I sit down, and I'm not going to answer phone calls. I try not to, have stressful things to deal with at all, during that time. And I just sit and I consume my juice. I'll do a half gallon of fresh pressed juice to start, and I let it, digest for about 10 or 15 minutes before I have my next thing. Usually if I'm going to have something solid, like some lettuce or some, whatever, some wild-crafted mushrooms that we fried up or something, I'll have it then. And then usually I make a tea with some of the herbs that I've gathered or from my garden, that I use as a base. That I work with a superfood company that we, sell, superfood powders. I'll have that tea go into one of my superfood juices. That way I'm getting, the medicinals that I want and the superfoods that I want. And then last, I usually make either a smoothie or like a chia pudding or like a chocolate elixir, like a quart of that. So I take about a gallon of liquids, at that time. And I just try to have it slowly and, be peaceful. And then I give myself about 20 or 30 minutes to digest, and then I go get some movement right away. So that's kind of how I run my daily. Is there anything else? Did that answer the question?
Hello, Jesse. I don't know if this is a question. I think yes, but we will see. I would like to just briefly share with you, talk to you about a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine. I love her so much. She's a beautiful lady. She's like 65 years old. And since 14 years, she has been only drinking. I actually not many things, not huge quantities of really few calories. and she has a super bright energy, bright eyes. She has a very, very incredible heart. And what amazes me is that she basically drink hot chocolate,
Yeah.
but the industrial hot chocolate, or
Yeah.
or cappuccino. When I go to make to buy at the supermarket for her, she really tell me, please take the brand that it's the worst. Because it fits me better, and I just don't know why, but it's like this.
Yes.
Yeah, and then she's English citizen, so she has been obliged to do a completely full check of health last year, and everything was super good.
Yes.
This is amazes me.
I totally believe it, and it's part of the mystery of prana, but it's also this thing. Everything I just detailed was like sort of the conventional way, through Ayurveda and Chinese traditional medicine, all these things. But there's people who've been, totally eating like sausages and everything crazy, and then they have this ecstatic experience, and then they don't eat anything anymore, you know. And one thing that I've noticed, and it's something Ellie Tom was telling me about too, is if you're practicing this lifestyle and you've got your discipline to the place where it's easy for you to like have these long fasts in between, your body is so good and so resilient and so able at casting off what it doesn't need, that you can get away with a lot. you can eat pretty terribly if you want to. You know, why I go the route of being sort of more fastidious with my diet and the superfoods and herbs and stuff is that's part of my prana. I love it. I think it's really cool, And when you stack, I'm also going for longevity is one of my goals. I'd love to be a centurion or a super centurion. I'd like to live to be 200 because life is beautiful, but part of, I kind of got lost on where I was going with that. Sorry, where were we? Oh, just that, yeah, your body, like I consume quite a bit of sugar, in terms of fruit juice. I'll put maple syrup and everything and, all this stuff. But because I'm fasting for 23 hours, it's mopping up all the glycation. Everything is, my body is completely clean and clear before I consume anything else again, and, I burn probably, I don't even know how many calories per day, before, like I will have used up all my calories because I finished my food by like 2:30. So by 6:30 in the morning, I'm already a 16-hour dry fast, and that's when I start my day working, and that's when I burn, the most calories. So it's not about calories, it's about prana, it's about energy. And so we're not just taking food away, because food is a type of prana, we're developing these other forms of energy through, sexual, temperance, through energy cultivation, through etc., through joy. So we have other forms of energy that our body can rely on. So you can't just take the one thing away, but as you do, you'll find that your body starts to just move into prana more naturalistically. So hence fasting is a potent tool.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes. And thank you also for mentioning sitting with your cat. It really touched me deeply. Thank you very much.
For sure. I sit every day as part of my joy practice. I sit with my cat and I read my book, and it's like part of the best time of my day usually. So, yeah. So animals and actually is a form of prana. They
Yes,
readily share their energy. You know.
of course.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jesse. Hai
My
trasmesso.
pleasure.
Grazie per aver condiviso con noi la tua conoscenza.
Thank you for having shared with us your knowledge.
My great pleasure, family. Love to you all. Sending you all the blessed. Lots of prana and high vibes. Enjoy the retreat. Hope you guys just have a great, wonderful day and many blessings to you all.
Thank you.
Okay. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye, bye, bye.
Bye bye.